Hello everyone, welcome to Pikeville History Moments, where we talk about the history and heritage of Pikeville, Kentucky and the surrounding area. Today, we're going to talk about how Pike County got its shape. Many residents have seen what Pike County looks like on a map, but how did that shape come to be? Today, Virginia borders the county on the southeast, and West Virginia borders on the northeast. These lines were established at Kentucky's birth in 1792, though West Virginia wouldn't become a state until 1863. On the last day of 1776, Virginia divided Fincastle County into 3 counties. The largest was Kentucky, which still features nearly the same shape today. Congress granted Kentucky statehood with those borders in 1792, and Virginia supported the creation of the new state. Part of the description in the act creating the county read, beginning on the Ohio at the mouth of Great Sandy Creek and running up the same and the main or northeasterly branch thereof, the Great Laurel Ridge or Cumberland Mountain. According to historian Henry Scaff, in his 1966 book, Kentucky's Last Frontier, there was a contradiction in the description that caused problems between the states almost immediately. While the Tug Fork is clearly the northeastern fork of the Big Sandy River, it is also clear that the Leviza Fork, and not the Tug, is the main fork. Matters escalated quickly as both states were issuing land grants for the disputed area between the two rivers. In 1795, the Kentucky General Assembly had assigned the state's first governor, Isaac Shelby, the task of resolving the issue. Negotiations were slow moving. In 1799, delegations from each state met in mid-October at the confluence of the Tug and Leviza Forks at present-day Louisa and made camp. Scaff reports a tradition that he deems likely due to its universal acceptance. The tradition holds that the men appointed by each state to settle the matter had to travel great distances in remote mountainous terrain to reach the forks of the Big Sandy. By the time they arrived, they were soaked from the drizzling rain and exhausted from their journey. These men had no personal stake in how the matter turned out. They likely only wanted to report the job complete and earn their pay. That night, they spent the evening drinking spirits by the fire, passing the time and attempting to get warm and dry. At a point during the night, they agreed that the northeastern fork, the Tug, which after all didn't look much smaller than the Leviza, would be the border. The following morning, the Leviza Fork had swollen from the rains, and it dwarfed the Tug. This caused some discussion among the likely hungover surveyors as to whether the Tug could be rightly called the main branch. They eventually decided to honor the decision made the night before and sign the agreement. The saying goes that the men, like true Kentuckians and Virginians, agreed to ratify while sober what they had agreed to while drunk. Here's a partial list of the communities in Kentucky today that wouldn't be had the decision gone the other way: Feds Creek, Phelps, Zebulon, Belfry, Prestonsburg, Inez, and Van Leer. Looking at it another way, all of Martin County and about 2/3 of Pike County would likely be in West Virginia. In fact, while downtown Pikeville would still be in Kentucky, the state line would be running through the middle of the Appalachian Wireless Arena, assuming against all odds that it would have been built where it stands today. The agreement kept the ridge of Pine Mountain as the border from the present-day Tennessee state line to the Breaks Canyon along the Russell Fork. From a spot that you can see from the state line overlook at Breaks Interstate Park, they struck a 45-degree line to the northeast up to where it intersects the Tug Fork. Today, that point is where Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia meet. As for the other half of the county line, Let's return to 1792 when Kentucky became a state. Kentucky had 3 counties then, with present-day Pike County lying within Fayette County. As settlers poured through the Cumberland Gap and up the Ohio River's tributaries, more counties were created. By 1800, the state population had tripled, and Floyd County was created as the 40th county in Kentucky. A little over 20 years later, on December 19, 1821, Pike County was created out of Floyd to be effective the 1st of March, 1822. It was the 73rd county in the state of Kentucky. As the years went by and Kentucky's population grew, more counties were added. The shapes of existing counties transformed, sometimes to balance sizes, sometimes to account for travel distances to the seats of county government, and sometimes due to political influence. The northern boundary of Pike County originally extended up to modern-day lovely Kentucky at the mouth of Wolf Creek. That's about 12 miles downstream along the Tug Fork from the current boundary at the mouth of Big Creek. The boundary switched between those two locations numerous times between 1850 and 1870 when the area north of the ridge between Wolf Creek and Brushy Creek went toward the creation of Martin County. Pike County's southern boundary transformed with the creation of Letcher County in 1842 and Knott County in 1884. Knott County's creation had taken a large amount of territory from Letcher County. Letcher County's seat was Whitesburg, which was much closer to the upper reaches of Elkhorn Creek than Pikeville. In 1884, when Knott County was formed, Pike County gave approximately 18 square miles to Letcher County, including the land that would become Jenkins. This change moved the Pike County border approximately 8.5 miles northwest along Pine Mountain from its original location at Pound Gap and along the ridges that divide the watersheds of the Kentucky and Big Sandy rivers. The boundary remains the same today. The final change to the boundary happened when the original straight-line segment of the border with Floyd County had begun where Brushy Creek flowed into Johns Creek and struck southwest. In 1888, Pike County gained a small area of land from Floyd County around Lower Johns Creek. Most of the straight-line boundary was kept, but a small portion of it now follows the stream near the mouth of Brushy Creek and climbs along a nearby ridge. This has been Pikeville History Moments. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe, or click on the link to our website at visitpikeville.com. If you're in the area this fall, we suggest taking a road trip to visit some of the areas mentioned in this video. It would be a great way to take in the fall colors. We'll see you next time.